Vanessa Neumann is the CEO of Asymmetrica, a political risk consultancy. Pardon me. She joins us from Washington, D.C. So, Vanessa, let's first talk about what sparked this was pushback against these reforms to pensions. Is there some sort of reform needed in the pension system? We'll talk about how it was handled later, but is there a place there? Is there something that needs to be fixed?
Yes, I mean Nicaragua is not really doing well economically. Unfortunately, this is a combination of a number of factors, and they need to fix it. The problem is, from the perspective of the protesters, is what caused it, plus how it's being handled. So they are seeking to. It's overburdened. There's too much poverty. And the private sector feels that it's overburdened and it needs a bit of relief. So what has happened is that the Nicaraguan government has very much been in cahoots with certain business leaders who have turned a blind eye to Daniel Ortega's increasingly dictatorial ways and been striking deals and laws that benefit them and that benefit business. So the latest was this pension reform that they wanted to cut back the amount of pension people get and also cut back the benefits that they get. So the ratio is much worse for the poor. Mm-hmm. And so the poor felt that this was a reneging of the deal on them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So is there a way to put a lid back on this? Because it seems like the protesters almost feel unleashed. As the guy in our story said, it was what tipped the glass over.
Yeah. I think that's correct. I think your reporter was absolutely correct. That's exactly what has happened, is that this is sort of the final bit of evidence of the poor of Nicaragua, which is most of Nicaragua, that the system is stacked against them, that this was yet one more legislation that was in cahoots between the dictatorship and the business community and is robbing them. They had sort of allowed a ceding of governance rights in exchange for being taken care of, and now they're not being taken care of. And now everything has unleashed. You know, the control of the National Assembly, the Supreme Court, the nepotism, his wife is the vice president, the elimination of presidential terms, and now they just want all of it out. They want to kick out the system.
So to that point, there's a lot of similarities about what's happening here with what's happening in Venezuela. There were obviously really fierce protests there, but Nicolas Maduro hasn't gone anywhere. He is still there. What do you think is going to happen as these protests continue in Nicaragua?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Venezuela, because I actually am from Venezuela, and I've spent 2 decades analyzing what has been happening in Venezuela, first with Chavez and then with Maduro. You are exactly right that this is a parallel, and that's not by coincidence. They are allies, they are friends. They were part of the ALBA system that was heavily funded by Venezuela. So when Nicaragua received a lot of money and funding and logistical support from Venezuela, with Venezuela's collapse, that has gone down. So it's one of the things putting a strain on Nicaragua. But the playbook of repression and everything is the same. The problem is Nicaragua is not Venezuela. You don't have, all the oil deposits. You don't have the great support of China. You do have China and Russia also in Nicaragua, but not to the same extent you do in Venezuela. And you don't have, the international financial community propping it up through either the oil bonds or the sovereign bonds or other types of deals. So they don't have the relief valves, the economic relief valves that up until now Venezuela has had. Mm-hmm. Also, Venezuela is far more under the control of the Cuban intelligence services and also the Russian intelligence services, even the Nicaragua. So their repression machine is far more effective.
Vanessa, thank you very much.
But I wanted to add, I would like to add one thing. If Daniel Ortega goes, if they succeed in getting him out, I would watch for this echoing throughout the region. That might make Venezuela, for instance, flare up again, because what you're going to start seeing is a bit almost like an Arab Spring kind of dynamic in the region. So I would keep an eye on that. This won't be over.
Yeah, absolutely will. That's a good last word. Vanessa Neumann joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you.